This is Millennial Money Mindset. If you want the fruits, you need the roots. Thanks so much for joining us. So we're going to give away loads of value today. We're going to do Monday markets. So what I'm going to do is a new feature that I'm going to do on this channel. Essentially, we're going to go through Monday markets. I'm going to go through an overview of what's going on in the market. I'm going to make it as evergreen as possible. So if you're watching this after November 2021, stay with us, because there's going to be loads of value as well. It's going to be evergreen content. We're going to touch on what is going on with the markets. I've seen something today which was kind of like, wow, this has shocked me. And so I thought I'd better record a video and let you guys know on how you can, essentially what you can do about it. So we're going to go through it. We're going to go a brief overview of what's going on today in this week in the kind of financial news, and essentially going to go through some strengths, weaknesses of the economy, opportunities, and some threats as well. So stay right to the end. So the good news is with the economy, so we're entering the fourth industrial revolution. So think of it from, we're going to go through a kind of a big picture kind of point of view. So there's never been a better time to be alive. There's loads of stuff going on, loads of new industries happening. So this is good. Although we've gone through major recession, which has obviously been bad for many people, recessions aren't always bad. Think of them like the seasons of the year. So a good cold recession can think of it like in the garden. It can kill a lot of the bugs out, the unproductive bugs that will kill off and will stop your roses from growing. It's a similar thing with the markets. So deep cold recession can kill off a lot of unproductive companies. And this gives new life. This gives space for new life, new companies to grow. And this is exactly what we've had with this economy. So basically, we've had a real deep, dark recession, which has been, a lot of people have struggled, a lot of people have, it's been bad for a lot of people, but it's meant that it's given space for new companies to grow. So a lot of companies that were just on the breadline before have essentially gone bust, even with help with the government. A lot of people who maybe were thinking they were maybe be coming to retirement, they thought, actually, I don't want to essentially continue with this business, so I'm going to either sell it or essentially start retiring. So a lot of businesses have closed, and that's means more opportunity for millennials and for people who are essentially who wants to start new business. So I've got a screenshot here of what the new economy, essentially we're entering a fourth stage of the industrial revolution. So essentially previously we've had the first industrial revolution was steam. So before that, imagine you'd have, essentially most people worked on a farm. Steam came along and it meant everything got much easier. So steam power. Then we moved to electricity. So you're watching this on your laptop or computer powered by electricity. There's lights here that's been powered by electricity. I'm recording this on a laptop that's been powered by electricity. So this created a whole new wave of new opportunities, new industries, new jobs that will open up. So this is the second industrial revolution. Then we moved to computing power. So computers came along. If you think of many things if you think of shops and things like that, it made things much easier. You could actually have barcodes. You could actually have a supply chain, which made things much easier. You could have just-in-time production. And also so it made much more easier. But now we're heading to the fourth industrial revolution, and this is connectiveness. This is blockchain. This is Internet of Things. This is things like better supply chain, Internet of Things. And so this is a wonderful time, and this is good news. So this is essentially the strengths of the economy. So this is, even though we're living kind of dark times, it's good. I mean, it's good times really from a big picture point of view. So what are these industrial revolutions? So artificial intelligence, blockchain, robotics. So it's going to make everything easier. These businesses are there to solve meaningful problems, and having these new technologies, essentially it's going to make things a lot easier. And although some things it's going to be bad, people don't like change, but it means that people that are doing kind of mundane jobs before, these are going to get automated, which may be bad for that person, but that gives them an opportunity to retrain and to do something more creative, use their intelligence, use something that actually humans were designed for, not. So a guy that I know, he works in robotics, and one of the factories he went to, he basically had to design a robot hand because there was one guy who was employed all day to essentially, there was a bread that came down this conveyor belt, and his job was to pass this bread along the conveyor belt. Essentially, this guy just invented a robot hand that kind of did that job. Unfortunately, that guy lost his job. That might mean that he can retrain and do something a bit more creative. He might go to teach. He might do something he actually likes doing. I'm sure this guy actually spent all day knocking a bread loaf to the next line in the conveyor belt. Didn't necessarily enjoy his job. So that's the strengths. So there's a lot of weaknesses in the economy. So there's a new strain of coronavirus. This is the big one in the news. This is the Omicron, or I don't even know how to pronounce it, but essentially there's a new strain that came from South Africa, and this has hit that markets hard. So a number of different markets that have been hit really hard are things like the tourist companies, so especially the cruise lines. So there's some stats here. So Carnival was down 10.9%. Norwegian Cruise Lines was down 11.3%. And oil was down, I think it was down something like 12.5%. So it's down because if you think of people aren't going to be traveling, they're not going to be taking planes, and this reduces the demand for oil. And if that's still supply, then that's going to move down. So also other companies like Rolls-Royce that supply jet engines, that's down 11.6%. And IAG that owns British Airways and Iberia, they were down 14.8%. So this is essentially been hit hard. This new coronavirus strain has hit tourism hard. But there were other industries that did really well. So Moderna, who do the vaccinations, that jumped 20%. So this is good news for vaccinations manufacturers, because obviously the more strains means more vaccinations, and that means more business for them. So like in the economy, there's kind of swings and roundabouts. So that's the strengths. That's essentially the weaknesses. We're going to look at the opportunities. So going to have a quick look at some technical analysis. I'm going to give you 3 things that essentially, if you're looking at technical analysis, these are the 3 things that you should be looking for. So I should say, why listen to me? Why listen to what I'm saying? So essentially, bear with me one sec. Let's go to, if you can see this, sharing the screen. So let's have a quick look at Yahoo Finance. Is really good for, I had this ready. Why listen to me? So I made millions trading gas from a FTSE 100 company trading. So I used to work on the trading floor, and I had 11 times I had £100,000 I made in a day. So I'm not very good at multitasking, so bear with me 2 seconds. So let's go through this technical analysis. So what are you looking for? Let's get the FTSE 100. So we're going to look at 3 things. So I've got some graphs here. So I've already made some notes here. So essentially what I've done here, the 3 things I look for is trend lines. So the old adage, let the trend be your friend until the bend in the end. And this is the first thing you look for in technical analysis. So just before I start, this is guidance. This is not advice. Do your own research. I think you should be not necessarily trading. I don't think you should be day trading. I think you should be long-term. It's much easier to be long-term investor than you are trading the markets daily. But this is just a good way to educate yourself on essentially what's going on in the markets. So what I've done here, I've got these 2 lines here. These are essentially the trend lines. If you see that, so that's following a trend. We're going from 2020, the bottom of 2020, up to 2021. So essentially there is a uptrend, which is good news. And then also what I've done, if I can zoom in a bit here. I've done 2, because that's the first thing. So look at trend lines. So let the trend, and there's a clear trend upwards. If you see those 2 trend lines, that's the top and that's the bottom. And what I've done here is created moving averages. So what I love, so essentially this is the average of the stock price. And what I like to use is a 20-day moving average and a 50-day moving average. And essentially, if you look at, and what you're basically looking for is where these 2 moving averages cross over. And essentially that's if there's 2 things you want to be looking for. So there's what they call a golden cross and a death cross. So when markets are about to fall, basically the moving averages cross over, and when they're about to rise, they also cross over. So if you look at here, so look, that moving average, if you can see that on the screen there, on 2020. So that crossed over, that's a death cross there. And that essentially indicates that markets are going to fall. And then if you look down here, so 2021, that's the golden cross there. And essentially the 20-day moving average crosses with the 50-day move average. And until these two cross over again, generally, it means that there's going to be a bull run. So a bull run is when it moves up, and a bear market is when it moves down. So the markets are looking pretty good at the moment, but anything can happen. With the news, as I said, the news with this new strain of coronavirus is probably the one that's the big worry at the moment. But there's one more thing actually, so stay right to the end, that I'm even more worried about. So that's essentially where I see the markets. As I said, why you should listen to me. So I traded gas for Shell. I made millions of pounds trading gas, commodities for Shell trading. I'm quite often made hundreds of thousands of pounds in a day trading the markets. And I was a financial advisor for a FTSE 100 company, FCA regulated. And I now create my own company called Money Tips. So we're different. We educate and inspire better investing. So that's why you should listen to me. And also I studied philosophy at Oxford University. And I kind of discovered that actually it's not all about the money. It's actually more about time freedom. So I kind of had an epiphany. Actually, it's more about having time to spend with your friends, family, and having more me time rather than chasing just the money. That's the markets here. So essentially, what are the opportunities? So it looks like there is pretty good growth in, this is just the FTSE 100. I'm not necessarily recommending you trade the FTSE 100. I don't even think you should have a look. There are so many more markets out there, but this is just a good FTSE 100 company. FTSE 100 is essentially the 100 biggest companies traded in the UK. And it's a good benchmark that people use. So one kind of thing that I'm worried about, let me just have a look to see if I found it. I did have a photo, but yeah, we're gonna move on. Essentially, inflation is the big worry at the moment. So the big inflation, so Germany hit 6% inflation in November. And this is huge news because Germany are quite a conservative country when it comes to inflation. They don't want inflation because they've had history of hyperinflation. In the 1930s, they had massive hyperinflation. And so this means that the European Central Bank is pretty conservative when it comes to inflation, but it hitting 6%. So imagine if you have £100, you're losing £6 out of your pocket every year to inflation. So your spending power in your back pocket is getting less. And if you've got a job and you're essentially on fixed income, if you're not getting paid any rises in your job, then that's going to erode your wealth essentially. So this is why you need to invest. It's why it's so important to invest. So essentially that's the threat that I see. So yeah, it's 1930s. And so why is inflation? So there's a lot of money printing. So the European Central Bank has printed money. The Federal Exchange has printed more money in the last 12 months than they have done in the last, they've printed loads of money basically. And Bank of England have printed £875 billion since the end of the last financial crash in 2008, which is kind of insane. So yeah, that was just a money market. So I'm going to do this every week just to give you a summary of what's going on in the markets, what there is, where the strength of the market is, what the opportunities are, if there are any threats, and what the weaknesses are. So hopefully this has been useful. Please like, where do you see there being opportunities? Where do you see there being threats? Where do you see their strengths? And where do you see there being weaknesses? So if you're thinking, actually, how do I start investing? Well, the great thing is it's never been easier to invest. So just grab a copy. I'll put a link below in the copy. So you can of my book, Millennial Money Mindset, if you want the fruits you need to root. It was shortlisted by the Financial Times in 2018. It was a bestseller on Amazon in 2019. We plant a tree for every book bought. And it's a simple 5-step method to money mindset, getting more money in your pocket, more time in your day, and less stress in your life. If you're thinking, I don't necessarily want to read your book, Neil, I published this book. So Money Tips, my company, published The Science of Getting Rich, and it's Wallace Wattles. So we published this book, and it's a brilliant book. I highly recommend it. It's kind of the crack cocaine of the self-help world. It's all about mindset. It's pretty good, I reckon. So I highly recommend it. And yeah, I'll put a link to it in the comments below. So, and we also have a game if you want to learn how to invest. It's called Football Formation Asset Allocation, and I'll give you a free training program as well. I'll put a link there. So hopefully this has been useful. So my name is Neil Doig. I'm the founder of Money Tips, and yeah, educate, inspire better investing. Please like, please subscribe, please tell a friend. Thank you so much.